Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the Romantic period of music. So the Romantic period lasted from 1820 to 1910. This period was full of emotion and drama. Everything that was written during this period was elaborate and huge in either direction, so there was lots of excitement, anger, sadness, and emotion. Some of the common themes that were present in these compositions were dreams, and the distant past and far-off lands and fairy tales and magic and all that kind of thing. There's also a lot of nature and joy and anger and happiness and sadness and all that kind of things, like we talked about earlier. Some things that were happening in history during the Romantic period. Abe Lincoln was President of the United States, and the Civil War happened in America during this period. And Vincent van Gogh, he was the painter who cut off his ear. He was a painter during this era, and he was very famous. Steamboats and railroads exploded, and they expanded, and there was better transportation, so that made way for more industrialization, things like that. Dynamite was invented during the Romantic era. The dress during this era, men wore long coats, they had huge sideburns and beards, and women wore huge, elaborate dresses, very romantic dresses during the Romantic era. Music in this era, everything was either way quieter or way louder, and everything was more. So there were bigger orchestras, more emotion, more of everything, more notes, more chords, bigger chords. A major change in this era was the orchestra. So there was a bigger orchestra, everything was supersized in the orchestra, and the pieces were longer. So a man named Carl Maria von Weber, who is a very famous composer, he came up with the first seating plan of the orchestra. This seating plan is still being used today, and there were more woodwinds, more brass, more string players, and we find richer harmonies and greater use of chromaticism, so more notes and more passionate melodies in this era of music. The piccolo and the bass clarinet were added, as well as the double bassoon. The tubas were also added to the instrumentation, so this allowed for different sounds to be utilized and to be experimented with. Valves were also added on brass instruments, which allowed them to play more notes and be more flexible in their playing. And like I said earlier, there were bigger orchestras, so more violins, violas, cellos, and basses, more brass, valves for the brass instrument, more woodwinds. Everything was bigger and better. You have probably heard some of his music before. His name is Tchaikovsky. Peter Tchaikovsky was born on May 7th in 1840, and he died November 6th in 1893. He was a Russian composer, and he was actually the first Russian composer whose music made a lasting impression throughout the world, not just in Russia. He wrote the 1812 Overture, which used two orchestras, a brass band, and a cannon. A cannon is not usually used in an orchestra, but he used this in his 1812 Overture. Fyodor Tchaikovsky also wrote a piece that is often performed and played around Christmas time. He wrote The Nutcracker. So The Nutcracker is a ballet, and it is extremely extravagant and beautiful. So let's listen to a little bit of The Nutcracker now. The next composer we are going to take a look at is Schumann. So Robert Schumann was born on June 8th in 1810 and died on July 29th in 1856. He was born and he died in Germany. He was a German composer, a music critic, and a pianist. He is known as one of the best composers of the Romantic era. He was actually a lawyer before he was a composer. He left his study of law and he pursued a career as a pianist. And a fun fact about Robert Schumann, he invented a machine to strengthen his fingers to get better at piano. This machine actually ended up hurting his fingers and ending his piano career. The next composer we're going to take a look at is Brahms. So Brahms was born on May 7th in 1833 and he died on April 3rd in 1897. He was born in Germany and he died in Austria. He was a German composer, conductor, and pianist, and he was born into a Lutheran family. He spent most of his professional life in Vienna. Brahms wrote the German Requiem. This is one of his most massive pieces, and he composed it the year after his mother died. You can tell which composer is Brahms because of his huge beard. He is known for his huge beard. And lastly, we are going to talk about Wagner. So Wagner was born on May 22nd, 1813, and died February 13th, 1833. He was born in Germany and he died in Italy. Wagner was a German composer, conductor, and theater director, and he was very well known for his operas. He loved dogs. Wagner had a dog named Robert. He lived as a rock star. He had lots of money, lots of girlfriends, he was a celebrity, and everyone loved Wagner. Wagner is known as the most powerful source since Beethoven. He is one of the most influential composers of all time.